Okay, Avi, are you there?
Hi, hello.
Hi, Avi. Well, thank you for joining us. Yes, shall we extend a round of applause for the director, Avi Mograbi?
Thank you for coming to watch the film.
Thank you so much for joining us from so early in the morning from your over at New York. Are you? You're in New York right now, or are you back at home?
No, actually, eventually I'm in Tel Aviv. My trip was postponed. I travel only tomorrow. So, yeah, happy to be with you from Tel Aviv.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Because just now I was giving the audience an introduction to your work, to your documentary, this particular documentary, and of course you will be, much better to explain this instead of me. But maybe I'll just ask the first question before I open it up to the floor. Can you tell us a little bit about why you made this documentary? Because just now I told the audience here that you've been making quite a few documentaries about what the Israeli army has been doing in the Palestinian occupied territories. But this is something new, isn't it? This documentary using archive footage from the organization Breaking the Silence.
Yes, I've been involved with Breaking the Silence from the early days of its foundation in 2004. And I'm one of the co-founders and still a board member of the organization until today. So obviously, I have an interest in the testimonies that Breaking the Silence are collecting. And a few years ago, I already made one film that was concentrated on one of the testimonies of Breaking the Silence. The film was called Z32, and I believe that the Hong Kong Cinematheque will screen it later this year. Yeah. So look, originally Breaking the Silence collected testimonies from the year 2000 and on, because this is the age, the generation of the founders of the organization, soldiers who served in the occupied territories around the second Intifada, year 2000 and on. But a few years ago, we did a special project in order to bridge the gap between 2000 and 1967 and collect testimonies from soldiers who served in the occupied territories from the very beginning. And once this was done, me as the filmmaker in the board started editing the single interviews to short stories so that we can look at them as a board, as the management of the organization, and decide what to do with them. And while doing that, I realized that there was a large scope story to be told. And I asked my colleagues to allow me to use the archive for my film, not a Breaking the Silence film, and create this 54-year, the first 54 years.
But the title itself and also your appearance in the film, I mean, it is as if you are really trying to tell or teach people how to occupy a land and how to subjugate a population. So what's the idea behind this particular tone or this style of delivering the message this time around?
Well, I think the idea was to provide the necessary Machiavellism and cynicism that lies behind this enterprise of the occupation, because sincerely, whoever is controlling this, or whoever has created this creature in the first place, had to ignore the collateral damage that the occupation causes, had to ignore the fate of the Palestinians, had to ignore what this does to individuals while Israel is pursuing to enlarge itself, to annex or to appropriate more and more land. So assuming that no one from within the administration, from within the system, would agree to openly expose the logic behind the occupation, I volunteered, like I always volunteer in my films, to be the bridge between you and this harsh reality.
Okay, so Avi, maybe I'll just see whether anyone from the audience would like to ask a question. Okay, if you do have any questions, please raise your hand, and then my colleague will pass you the microphone. 如果你想用廣東話或者用中文問咧，都冇問題嘅，我可以翻譯做英文。有冇任何問題？Okay, the lady up there.
And hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, hello, it's me sitting in the back. Thanks for the movie, and I really enjoyed the experience. It just also reminded me of my travel experience in Israel and West Bank. So thanks for it. My major question is that I think you made your point very clear and sharp in this movie about the ruling by fear, by force, by violence. But we all know that it's a very complicated and sophisticated issue around that area that, for example, there's maybe also some like soft power, like educational, cultural influence done by the occupators. And also maybe as per my like travel there, like the Palestinians, their feelings about Israelis are very mixed. Some of them even prefer the Israeli government to their own corrupted government. So my question is that, have you ever thought of like a more nuanced or more weaving into some other factors into the storytelling? Although your current film is very sharp and very clear in its point, but have you ever thought about a more nuanced approach or in some other documentaries of yours? Thanks.
Well, the idea about this film was that this is the moment where when we shed light on the perpetrators. Of course, the occupation is not a one-sided thing or a black and white thing. It has endless colors, and you can tell the story of the occupation in many different ways. But here, the decision was to concentrate on the experience or the testimony of the perpetrators. And this is, I think, a unique perspective. It is very rare that the perpetrators talk or tell about what they have done, share what they have done during the conflict, while the conflict is still ongoing. It took, in South Africa, apartheid had to be abolished, and only then the Truth and Reconciliation Committee could be founded. In Algiers or France, in the France-Algiers occupation, actually people did not step forward yet, and they are all very old, and very soon there will be no one to talk. So this is a very unique perspective, and I know that it lacks. For instance, sometimes people ask, why aren't there any Palestinians in the film testifying concerning the torture that they've gone through, the harshness of their life? But yes, this is a very single-channeled approach only the oppressors talk, and they talk about oppression and not about their own guilt feelings or their own reflections, their own efforts to purify, to clean themselves from the effect of what they have done.
But is it also intentional, Avi, that you, when you look through the archive footage to select what you want to include in your film, that you try to avoid the testimonies in which the soldiers express explicit guilt? Is it something that you try not to do, to get things which are too emotional into your documentary?
I come again. Try to avoid the testimonies which.
Okay, I think because when we look at the documentary, it seems that the soldiers are recalling their experiences quite matter-of-factly. So it's not like they are having this emotional mea culpa, I'm guilty, that kind of thing. But it's not something that you want to include in your film, isn't it?
No, absolutely not. Maybe the first and probably the most important decision I made concerning this film is to concentrate on actions, procedures, mechanisms, orders, and to cut out any reflections. This is not. Again, this is a film about the things that the perpetrators did and not how they felt about it. In every interview that Breaking the Silence take, there is a moment where the witness speaks about what he thought at the time when he was doing what he was doing, what he thought years later, the change that he has gone through since being a young soldier as to the person that he is today. And this may be interesting for many reasons, but I've decided to concentrate on the what it means to occupy, the occupation itself, and its detailed mechanisms, and to create a manual, and not to create a booth where someone can confess and repent.
Okay, so let's see whether there are any. Okay, that's the gentleman over there with a question.
Hello, Avi. Thank you for the documentary. My question is, I'm curious as to what is the sentiment within Israel as to the continued building of settlements in Palestine, and also are there any open discussion allowed within the country, and is the government controlling maybe a single narrative towards this? And also, what is your view on maybe what will happen in the next few decades? Thank you.
Okay, obviously, the settlements are not founded contrary to the wish of the people. Israel is a very right-wing government. It's true that we have a new government, but it's even more right-wing than the previous one, and settling in the occupied territories has been on the agenda of all governments in the past 54 years. Now, on one hand, yes, Israel is a wonderful democracy if you're a citizen, if you're Jewish, but it's a horrific democracy, a horrific dictatorship, sorry, for those living under the occupation, for the Palestinians who have no rights, no civil rights. And in Israel, it's allowed to, unlike efforts that China is making today in Hong Kong, in Israel, it's allowed to criticize the state and to express discontent with, for instance, the occupation. It doesn't mean that it's accepted gladly or in a friendly way, but it is definitely allowed. Now, concerning the future, well, the title of the film is The First 54 Years. So now we are entering the second 54 years. I think this covers a few decades.
Okay, so are you optimistic that things will change? I mean, as you said, Avi, you've got Israel's got a even more right-wing prime minister these days with Naftali Bennett. So do you think there will be any optimism at all about how this will end, or what do you think about this?
No, I'm not optimistic, as I already tried to say. But at the same time, I want to say something that is not based on facts or knowledge, but in a way, it's a prayer. It's a hope. 10 years before the end of apartheid in South Africa, I don't think that anyone in this room or anyone in the world could imagine that within 10 years, apartheid will be abolished and Mandela will become president. So maybe we are not only entering the next 54 years, maybe we are entering the next 10 years before the end of the occupation. And again, this is not based on any knowledge or any, I cannot show you where it's coming from, but maybe it is because history has shown us that this is possible.
I think well, using your analogy with South Africa, I mean, before, during the last 10 years of apartheid, I mean, we have activists, of course, within South Africa, trying to bring down the system. You have activists among the Black population, the white population, uniting together. But what is the situation now in Israel? For example, I mean, how have your films been received in the country? Has has things changed about how people receive your films in Israel?
Look, it's very difficult to say how the films are received. What is very clear is that the films don't succeed in crossing from the culture columns in the paper to the social political columns in the same paper. And basically there is no real debate around them. This last film was rejected by all Israeli foundations, Israeli cinema foundations, Israeli TV broadcasters, and even Israeli festivals. So the way it's reaching the people here is by Facebook. We have uploaded the complete film to Facebook, and we are spending a lot of money in digitally marketing it. Well, I take Facebook comments with great reservation, and truthfully, after a while, it's becoming tiring to follow them. There's a lot of foul language, and obviously by people who never saw the film. So it's difficult to say how the films are accepted. But I want to say something very important. I have in the past I thought that my films could be part of a change, a political change in Israel. I was naive, believing in the power of cinema to create change, which I'm not so right now. I believe that the films are not seen by those who are opposing the perspective that they provide. People from the right wing don't go to the cinema to watch those films or log to Facebook to watch it. They slur. They're not interested unless for some research or reasons like that. They don't really watch the films. The films are reaching the already converted, what we call the converted choir. And this should be accepted. And it's not so terrible as you may think, because the choir, our community, needs to be strengthened, needs to be supported, needs to be maintained, needs to be fed with thoughts and ideas. So I understand that this might be some kind of a disappointment for whoever wishes to change the world. I guess Facebook does more than films.
Okay, but how about the young filmmakers in Israel? Because I know that with your films, and to a certain extent, Amos Gitai's films, they've been critical of the Israeli states and also critical of what the situation is. But what about the next generation of filmmakers? I mean, with their exposure to your films and also films about Israel and also Palestinian films as well, will they be taking up your mantle in a way in continuing this message?
Look, I think that there have always been and there are still more people criticizing the political situation here than it may seem. Amos Gitai and myself are not alone there. There are many others, Anat Even, Rana Alexandrovich, Rachel Jones, Ran Kolirin. There are many other filmmakers. But again, the question is, what do those films serve for? And once you understand the limitations of the power of cinema, I think then your expectations can be more easily tuned.
Okay, so maybe we'll see whether there are any questions. Okay, this gentleman over there.
Hello, and thank you for shedding light on the occupation and for joining the session today. I have several questions, but I guess the one I'm more interested in asking is recognizing that the IDF has a pretty unique policy of conscripting both men and women in a mandatory fashion. I noticed that the archival stories and the recounts were all told by men. So I was just wondering if you could shed light on how that came to be and if there were stories told by women and if these stories differed in any way. Yes.
It's true that both men and women serve in the Israeli army, but women started serving in combatant positions only lately, only in the last 10 or 15 years. So obviously the proportions of between men and women in competent positions is very much in favor of men. Breaking the Silence do collect also testimonies from women, and for a while there was in the film at least one testimony from a woman, but it took me time to understand that the testimony did not fit the thematic direction of the film, and I was keeping it for, in a way, a pervert kind of feminism, to show that also women can be war criminals, which I'm not sure is what this is my agenda, or this is very important for me right now. So this woman was taken out of the film. Yeah, the women are lacking in the film. It's true, but the truth is that the majority of people, soldiers in the field are men.
So Avi, I think we are running out of time, but maybe I'll just round up our meeting today by asking you about the future, because, well, I know that you're traveling, but are there any projects that you are doing now? I mean, how would you press ahead with your films? I mean, in terms, because this one, the first 54 years, is another step towards advancing the message with another style. What do you have in mind for your next project?
The truth is that I have nothing in mind. My routine of making films has a cycle of normally 4 or 5 years. I finish the film, I travel with it, then I go into 2 years of being depressed about not making a new film, and then maybe a new idea comes up, and I end up making the new film. So I'm sorry, I have nothing to share.
No, don't worry. I'll ask you again, like next month, okay, when we meet again, because as Avi said, the Broadway Cinematheque here will be screening Z32, one of Avi's previous films, in another program of ours, which we have yet to announce. But of course, well, Avi will be back to talk to us, and then I'll press you with another question about your next project, and then you say that you haven't got a project, and well, we'll see to that. Okay, but thanks so much, Avi, for joining us today. Okay, I hope that we can talk again soon. So shall we extend a round of applause to Avi Mograbi?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Avi. Well, see you soon. See you again.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Ciao.